Okay.
Okay, I'm Liana Andreasen, and
I'm Dr. David Oakes.
we are going to talk about the movie Beloved that is based on Toni Morrison's book Beloved. And we are not really going to debate, meaning that we may agree on some things and may disagree on some things, but we'll see where it goes. And we just want to talk a little bit about it to encourage people to watch it.
Okay. Yeah, the movie was a 1998 production directed by Oscar-winning director Jonathan Demme, starring all-star cast of Danny Glover as Paul D., Oprah Winfrey as Setha, Tandy Newton as Beloved, and quite an array of others starring in it. Movie's about 3 hours long. I don't remember how it did at the box office. It didn't flop, but I don't think it was the largest hit ever. It did receive a lot of very high critical praise. When I first heard about the film, I was tremendously excited because I love the book Beloved. It's a profound novel, but it's also a horror story, a ghost story. But I knew that the movie was going to be tough to adapt. The book would be tough to adapt because the character of Beloved, has a first-person narration. So can you possibly translate that, into the screen when it's the first-person point of view of the ghost? But given that Jonathan Demme had directed one of my favorite all-time films, The Silence of the Lambs, I thought if anybody could do it, it would be him. Amelia, I went to see it in the theater when it first opened, and I will be honest with you, I despised it watching it in the theater. Oh, I did not like it. I remember Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were saying, well, you need to watch it twice. Given my reaction to it in 1999, I was not about to do that. When I first saw it in the theater, it's like, oh yes, I despised it. Now I'm going to go back and see it again. No.
What was it that you disliked so much about it?
Part of it was how long it was. And I thought, the acting was fine, the cinematography was great, there were a lot of good things about it. It just felt like it dragged a long time. I think the other thing was that, when I first saw it, the character of Beloved came across more as a monster, not the kind of, I won't say sympathetic in the novel, but you can understand why the spirit is doing some of the things that it did. And at the beginning of the movie, it's like it's kind of a very traditional horror movie. And come on, guys, you got to try to make this a little bit, more sympathetic for her. And then it just felt like it dragged for 3 hours in the theater. I just recently rewatched it this week. 21 years later, and I found it to be a much, much better film the second time
Just
around.
got to see it the second time.
Yeah, but in 1998, when I first saw it, there was no way I was going to go see it a second time, no way. But with the passage of time, and I think one of the things that really ended up making me really dislike it is that I went in with sky-high expectations. This is the director was the man who directed Silence of the Lambs, one of the very few movies to sweep the top Academy Awards. Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Picture. So I was figuring, this is going to be really good. And, so there was an immense disappointment that, I had gone in with this huge expectations and it it didn't live up to that. This time when I watched it, I went in with no expectations, just saying, okay, I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to try to be prejudiced against it this time around, because I want to go in with a fresh pair of eyes. But I'm not going to expect it to be a great, fantastic movie like I did the last time. And it was much easier to watch the second time. I think it's a film that works better when you view it at home and can take breaks from it, as opposed to being in a theater and watching it all the way straight through. Because
can I talk about my first experience watching it? Because I
Mhm.
also watched it recently, but also when it came out. So for me, I came to the movie, I knew that Oprah Winfrey was going to be in it, and she is the one who insisted with Toni Morrison. She called Toni Morrison and asked her to let her do it, and so she was surprised that Toni Morrison agreed. And then I wasn't sure if Oprah Winfrey could even act, but first of all, I was impressed when I first saw the movie. I was impressed that I forgot that it was Oprah. So it's not like you're watching Oprah doing things on the screen. She became the character, an interpretation of the character. Maybe I didn't imagine her exactly like that, but I was a huge fan of the book. So I wrote my thesis back in Romania in college. I wrote my thesis on Beloved. I knew it backward and forward. So I went to the movie hoping that they weren't gonna leave out a lot of the things that I thought were important. So first thing that I was happy about, and that made the movie long, was that they didn't cut out too many of the important things. I did think that maybe the part where they are on the plantation, which are the memory pieces, the fragments that are from Seta's memory, were maybe shorter or maybe not as prominent as I wanted them to be. So the focus is on the present time with Seta and with her relationship with Beloved and with Denver. So I was happy that that was the focus of the movie, the relationship between the three women. And of course, Paul D comes into the picture, then leaves and comes back. Anyway, don't want to give away too much of the plot, but what I was happy that they kept a lot of the most important things, parts of the book. I wasn't too happy at that time with Tandy Newton's performance, because I thought that she was making Beloved too weird, and as you said, less sympathetic. But then I realized that in the meantime, I saw Tandy Newton in a lot of things, and she's a great actress. And now watching it again, I started to understand what she was doing. The one thing that was impressive about her performance, even though she was very young, is that she manages to make the body that she's inhabiting as a ghost. She's inhabiting a real body, and she's very awkward using it. She can't quite keep it together. She doesn't comprehend what to do with the body. So, and it doesn't get better and suddenly she's like a normal human being till the end. No, she remains awkward in that body. So it's almost as if she doesn't know what to do with it. And that I understood better her performance. But the thing that I liked the most first time and second time is the performance of the actress who played Denver, which is Kimberly Elise. And she makes the movie cohere, and she is the pillar of that movie, even more than Setha. And then I realized that that's how it's meant to be, because in the book, you see the evolution of Denver from a shy child who can't quite connect with her mother because she's afraid of her mother, because she kind of knows that her mother is a murderer. In a way, I mean, in a way, of course, she did murder her daughter. But Denver is afraid of the world because of this trauma that the whole family carries with them. And toward the end of the book, Denver becomes much stronger because she has to, in the end, become the mother of her mother to, keep her healthy, keep her fed, because Beloved pretty much takes over her mother's life. And so Denver becomes the mother of the family, and she goes out, she gets a job. And the actress in the movie made that much more clear than I even realized reading the book, because I was so focused on reading the book. I was focused on Beloved and her, the way that she narrates her story, and her point of view being the point of view of all the slaves that she kind of absorbs into her character, the ones from the slave ship, and she talks through them, or they talk through her. I was more fascinated from the book by the ghost, but I realized watching the movie that Denver is the center. Denver is the future. Denver is the hope. Beloved is the past that doesn't let the future develop. So I thought that's even more fascinating, is what saves them. And maybe for African American community, what saves them from the past of slavery is having a future, finding a place in the world, not being afraid of the world, but being strong enough to become part of the world. So to me, that is one aspect of the movie that made it successful. They really, the actors carried the role, and Denver becomes the most important character. So I was happy with it the first time, and now the second time, 20 years later, I I noticed much more, because I expected to like it, but I noticed a few more flaws, because maybe the first time I was a little more idealistic, and this time around I noticed a few inconsistencies and things like that, and but nothing too major. And I was kind of hoping maybe Paul D would be stronger, given that the actor is very good and the character is important, but he was kind of in the background, and that's maybe how it's meant to be, because it's a female perspective, and so the movie maybe is better understood by women, but I don't want to say that, because I don't want to make it seem as if only women should watch it, because it's not a chick flick. It's not something that, it doesn't have a lot of romance. It's more poetic. It's like that's why cinematography is very important, because that takes place of like you were saying, that you were not sure how a first person point of view could be translated into movie. And one way to replace that narration is through cinematography. I think for any movie, that's one thing that can compensate for the lack of narration. So I was happy with how they portrayed that kind of beautiful, but maybe difficult natural landscape, where you kind of have to work hard to survive, and you can only work as a community. And if you're outside of the community, then it's harder to succeed in a rough environment. So it's beautiful, but maybe a little off-putting because of harsh winters and things like that. What do you think of the cinematography? Were you happy with it?
Well, I thought it was really well done. The cinematography was really good, but the second time through, I did appreciate the depth that the storyline went into. It was the difficulty of kind of expressing that point of view of Beloved. That you don't get that. It's difficult to kind of fit in that full history that you had in the book, but that was a part of the challenge of trying to adapt a book like Beloved, is that there are parts of the book that fundamentally just will not translate effectively, like the first person point of view of Beloved. I think they did do well with it was kind of a little confusing where right at the beginning, where the two boys kind of run off, and then later I didn't know, I kind of got confused. Were they supposed to be ghosts? Were they her sons?
I thought it was just her imagining them coming back, maybe, but because it was just an image that she had, that maybe they would come back, but they never did come back. I think she was just hoping one day they would come back.
Yeah, well, I got the impression when they had that scene where she kind of goes bananas and did she murder the two boys in Beloved, or were the two boys still
No. Well, the boys, she wanted to kill all the children and then herself to save all of them from slavery, right? But the only one she manages to kill is the toddler who becomes beloved as a ghost, or when she takes a body and comes back. But the two boys she had, I think, wounded them, and the grandmother came and revived them. So you see one of them starts moving, and then they get, healed back. Probably she managed to wound them with a knife, but she didn't kill them. And then later they run away from home when they see that the ghost starts to haunt the house too much, and they get scared because maybe the ghost really was jealous of all the other kids, and she was scaring them.
Yeah, because that was kind of a confusing in terms of the family history, and they never really show up again. I didn't realize that Beloved had taken over a body. I thought she kind of like generated the body out of nowhere, because they have.
It's not too clear. She gets a hold of a body, but it's not clear. And actually, what I read recently is that Toni Morrison had only, after writing about a quarter of the book, she decided to bring Beloved to life as a person. So she wanted her to just be maybe a ghost in the house that kind of shook the house sometimes, and also just present through the guilt of her mother. But then she thought, no, I need Setha to be confronted physically with her guilt. Like, I need to have a character who judges her for what she did. So that's when she decided, okay, I'm going to bring Beloved as a character. And so it was a later decision from her.
The way I thought I saw it in the movie was that she kind of spontaneously generated this body, because you've got all
possible. I don't think it has a very scientific explanation. So it's possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, given the degree of the kind of the oddness of of Beloved's condition at the end of the movie, after or when the final confrontation takes place with forces of light, shall we say? I guess I don't want to give away the ending, so we'll say when the final confrontation takes place, her condition is, kind of intriguing one, and you wonder what might have happened if she wouldn't have something, if the ending had been different.
Well, I think the ending makes sense, just like in the book, that if she appeared so spontaneously, she can also go away in the same way from wherever she came from, probably going back to the slave ship, or maybe.
You kind of wonder what. Well, I suppose
she just wanted to be with her mother, but then when her mother is not functional anymore, then she doesn't need her mother, or the community rejects her.
Well, I suppose it's also kind of the ending of the movie is symbolic that she's kind of in the same state that Setha was at some point, and so there's a parallel there, and something that maybe could have been never had a chance to pass. Yeah.
In a way, Setha gets rid of the memory of that trauma in her life. So it's herself that she leaves behind by exorcising it.
Although I think
I guess we gave away some of the plot elements,
well, yes. Setha at the end of the movie looked like, let's just say I didn't exactly have a lot of hope for her making it long term.
The thing is that she's going through a deep depression, I think. And I think the biggest hope is that Paul D is determined to make it work. So he doesn't care that she's in that bad shape. It's like, okay, come on. You're your best thing. So this is, I think, maybe people were disappointed with the ending is not so clear cut, put a big bow on it and say, look, it's a happy ending. I think it's just like in life, a happy ending is the hope for a better life, right? Because you can't
Yeah.
see what actually it could mean for people, but I think that hope is there at the end.
Well, and I think isn't what she, when at the end, isn't that kind of the first time she really starts to talk about what happened with Beloved? That she's actually starting to admit and talk about it, and
That's
that in
what
itself.
therapy is, right? When you start talking, it's almost as if the ghost comes back as a form of therapy.
Yeah,
That once she confronts her, then she can talk about it.
yeah, that yeah, she realized, there was a big difference between, life and death, the past and the future. And sometimes, and that this is one of the great messages of the book, is that sometimes the past helps you move in to the future, because
Yeah.
without, Beloved might never have been dealt with unless they called upon the traditions and the rituals of their unique past to kind of move her beyond there. Although whether it was the rituals that were going on, or Setha kind of leaving the porch and heading toward the guy in white, the prince of the school guy or
Well,
teacher.
she just at the end, it's not the same person. She just thinks it's the same guy that. But what's interesting to me is that that's what makes me think that it was just. She makes it seem as if she's just close to dying, that she barely can breathe anymore. But suddenly she has all this strength to pick up the ice um, pick and run to try to kill the person in white. So it seems like she really was just depressed. She wasn't close to death. I think the strength, she still has it in her to live, and wants the community. Well, because the community is important, because they were rejecting her. The whole movie, you see them looking askance at the whole family, and because Denver is the first one to make the step outside and start telling them about it, and then they start feeling sympathetic and they feel bad. Like,
Yeah.
really, she came home and Beloved, and she's like the age that she would be if she had lived. And so they, once they are able to participate in that family story, they accept it and they forgive her. But and then they join her at the end, and hopefully they'll help her get back on her feet. I
Yeah,
think
and
that's.
well, and without Denver, that wouldn't have happened, because she's the one that reaches out to the community to bring them, in and ask for help. And and because they're really the only ones who that can tap into that, the background, and maybe perform the right rituals to, deal with it.
Can you
And
excuse me 1 second? One. So
okay, and of course, it's, we see Setha decline as Beloved is interacting with her, and it's almost like, the only way Beloved can perhaps stay alive is to drain that energy
yeah,
from her soul, her spirit. And once that source of fuel is removed, she goes to wherever it is that she goes.
I do wish they had portrayed the after, or not the afterlife, but the kind of a collective unconscious of all the slaves and all the people who went through that together. That she kind of, when she's in the world of the dead, she feels all of their, or she is with them. And I just wish they had
Yeah.
maybe portrayed that a little or showed more of that. But maybe it would have become, I'm just wondering what choices they had to make. Maybe they didn't want to
Um,
make it too gory or too much of a
it, it, it would
horror.
have, I think it really would have been tough to portray uh, that without it kind of looking cheesy. It's kind that's something that would be kind of tough, and they really dialed back on some of the stuff in the plantation, and and Setha being attacked by the white guys after she had escaped. And that I think there were a lot more of that in the book, but I probably in yeah, trying to make a movie that would work for popular consumption, that those kind of things needed to be toned down. Plus, it's a challenge of you have to make a longer movie to encompass the story, and if you have so it's already 3 hours long. If you try to include all that, it's going to be 4 hours.
Well, I mean, I see it as more of an art movie that
Yeah.
maybe should not have been in all the theaters. I think Oprah Winfrey actually went through a depression because it flopped at the box office. And
Yeah.
the thing is, maybe she should have released it in a maybe fewer theaters and then
Well, I thought they were
kept it
trying to.
longer.
I think they were trying to shoot for some Oscars for it.
They got a nomination for costumes, I think.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think it deserved more than that. I mean, for
Yeah.
example, I do think that the Denver actress is the best, even though she wasn't the most famous, but she just, I think they won some awards, but not an Oscar.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to have it be a profitable movie,
Yeah, I
but
mean, it couldn't, about a movie about slavery can't be that profitable unless you're Django Unchained, and then you make
yeah.
it really like a revenge fantasy or something a lot of fun. How can you make
Yeah.
slavery fun? It's not.
No, I didn't mean it like
No, not.
the
I'm saying in
but
general, that's a question. How can you make a slavery movie very exciting to watch? I mean, it's hard.
well, I
And
think they were trying to kind of tap into the Dances with Wolves type of ones, where the high-powered dramas that were successful with audiences during that time period. Because you had this period where you had really popular longer dramas winning the Best Picture. But it's in order to do that, it's a tough book to do as a movie. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really, really tough. And if you're trying to balance that with, you're trying to capture the spirit of the book and its importance, but you're also trying to get it to appeal to a large, as big an audience as possible.
and I think
Yeah.
it has appeal to not just to African Americans. It's a story that needs to be told to the whole country, not just.
Yeah. And it's tough to do that because they're also spending a lot of money on it. And, there's a lot of money that's going to the cast and the crew and actors. And yeah, it was a very tough balance to strike.
And I think it was brave to take it on because I think before that movie was made, a lot of people said it's a book that simply can't be made into a movie. Like
Yeah.
there are books that are good in such a literary way that it's hard to make them into good movies. But I don't think it's impossible. I think it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and
So
it succeeded.
and it will fail in some ways, but succeed in others, right?
Yeah, it succeeded, and they did succeed. Now, I believe in making a good movie, but not to the sky high ambitions that the studio or maybe many of the viewers the first time they saw it, like myself, wanted it to go to, but
I think the best
that
thing is not to have too many expectations that
yeah.
as a movie, as an action movie, or as not a specific kind of movie, but it's even better if you maybe read the book first, but it's fine not reading it because some of our students may not read the book first. They may want to see the movie first, and maybe it will inspire them to read the book afterward.
Well,
So
both are well worth taking a look at. Reading the book and watching the movie. It's an example of, both tell the same story in different ways, but it also illustrates that sometimes things that work in print don't work visually. And that sometimes the studio expectations of, oh, we're going to promote this as the big Oscar, our big Oscar nominee of the year, but then it doesn't quite get up to that kind of level. And it would have been difficult to do that.
and the Oscars usually have their own criteria. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't always agree with their picks. I mean, many
Well,
times it's a little frustrating to see what they count as the best movie.
that was back when I actually paid attention to the Oscars. I gave up on the Oscars a lot, quite a while ago. Yeah, when they started becoming more the winners of Best Picture are often movies about making movies. They're a little bit too self-congratulatory there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a spectacle. You don't have to take it too seriously. I don't think
Yeah.
Oscar is the best judge of good
Yeah.
movies.
I think a lot of folks have just don't look really at the awards anymore as being the be all end all of quality anymore. Because we're able to now look at movies and determine ourselves whether we want to take a look at them or not. We can find out a lot more about movies than even back in 1998. And I think it'll be interesting to see in the future how Beloved, given the turn towards streaming services, you kind of wonder if Beloved would have
Yeah,
been
maybe
done.
HBO would pick it up and make a different. It could be turned into a mini series, and then it would
Yeah,
have enough room to do
yeah.
everything that they had to leave out.
I don't know that will ever happen, but I think that the format, of allowing a more, a longer interpretation might have served the novel well. Although Oprah Winfrey did a remarkable job.
I really admire her for all that she put into the movie, including her acting. I was impressed that I didn't, as I said, I didn't expect to forget that was Oprah, and I did.
Yeah, I may be wrong, but didn't Oprah star in The Color Purple?
Did she what?
Did Oprah star in the
I
movie
think
The
that was
Color
Whoopi
Purple?
Goldberg. That was
Oh,
Whoopi
okay,
Goldberg.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
Unfortunately, we probably should wrap it up
okay,
because we have one more minute. So
okay,
I do want to encourage people to see it because that's the
yeah,
point of talking about it. But it
yeah,
has some flaws, but it's a good movie.
yeah.
Right.
And it is available on Amazon Prime for sure. I'm sure it's available on other streaming services. It is a very good movie, but also definitely read the book. The book is a modern masterpiece. Toni Morrison was an excellent writer, Nobel Prize winner, one of the great literary writers. And, this, horror is big right now, and ghost stories. And Beloved is one hell of a good ghost story.
Okay,
Plus a
well,
very profound novel to boot. And you
thank
can
you
learn
for
a lot
being
from it.
here. I think we need to end for because it's going to cut off. So
Okay. Thank you very much for
that's a
everybody
good
for watching
discussion.
it.
Go watch the movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, David.
Bye. Thank you, Liana.
Bye.